I am Ethan Harper. My father, Robert Harper, passed away a few weeks ago in Willow Creek, Oregon, after a year of battling a cruel disease. Sitting in the living room, looking through the misty window at the sprawling cornfield, I muttered, "I wish Dad could see his grandchild." Those words slipped out from deep within, accompanied by a heavy sigh. 5 years ago, when I married Sarah at 25 under the old oak tree in Willow Creek, Dad held my hand on the wedding day. "Ethan, when you have a child, let me know first." "Okay," he said, his voice warm, his eyes sparkling. I nodded, smiled, and promised I would. But now, as Sarah just told me she's pregnant, I no longer have the chance to keep that promise. That regret is the only thing that haunts me about Dad. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. When I learned Dad was sick, I did everything I could. I drove through the dusty red dirt roads of Willow Creek to the local hospital, where the smell of antiseptic and the sound of machines became part of my memories. I frequently visited my mom, Margaret, helping her care for Dad. I sat by his bedside, listening to him talk about his days working at the antique shop, about the clocks he loved. I called more often, sometimes just to ask what he ate, or sent videos so he could see me and Sarah laughing in the kitchen. I tried my best, but every night, as moonlight streamed through the window, I asked myself, could I have done more? Maybe I should have dropped a few construction engineering projects to spend more time at the hospital. Maybe I missed the chance to say final words to Dad. What hurt more was my brother Nathan. He lives in Portland, a 2-hour drive from Willow Creek, but never visited Dad when he was sick. While Mom and I took turns at the hospital, Nathan only made a few short calls, always saying he was busy with business. I remember calling him, practically begging him to come. "Ethan, I have work in Portland," he said, his voice cold. I yelled, "Dad's sick, Nathan. How can you be so heartless?" He hung up, and since then we barely spoke. I couldn't accept that he put money above family, especially as Dad weakened day by day. My mom was the strongest. She always stayed calm, though I saw her wipe away tears when she thought no one was looking. That day, as I sat with her on the sofa, looking at family photos, she held my hand. "Ethan, you did well. Truly," she said, her voice gentle. "Your dad would be proud." I looked at her, wanting to believe her, but regret still clawed at my heart. I just wanted Dad to know I tried, that I loved him more than anything. I looked out at the cornfield through the window, where Dad used to stand, wearing a straw hat, smiling at me. The next day, I sat on the sofa in Mom's living room in Willow Creek, moonlight from the window, casting faint glows on the wooden floor. James Larson, the lawyer, had just sat down, holding a black briefcase. Nathan, my brother, sat across from me, his eyes sharp, as if calculating something. Mom, Margaret, stood by the table, pouring water for James, but I noticed her hands trembling slightly. The air in the room was heavy, like before a storm. I took a deep breath, trying to shake the unease I felt since Nathan walked in with James. "So Dad left a will," I whispered, so softly only I could hear. I'd never thought about inheritance, but knowing Nathan's character, I knew this meeting wouldn't be easy. James opened the briefcase, pulling out a white envelope. "I'm here to announce the will of Mr. Robert Harper," he said, his voice steady and low. I looked at the envelope, recognizing Dad's familiar handwriting, the slanted ink strokes I'd seen on notes he left around the farm. Nathan leaned back in his chair, speaking up immediately. I heard Dad left a big inheritance. His voice was smug, as if everything already belonged to him. I clenched my teeth, holding back anger. "It's not all yours, Nathan," I replied, my voice firm. He glanced at me, his eyes sparking. I stared back, unyielding. The tension between us was like a taut rope, ready to snap. Nathan and I were never close, especially since Dad got sick. Before we were tight, running through Willow Creek's cornfields together, helping Dad fix tools on the farm. But everything changed when Dad was diagnosed. Nathan became arrogant, refusing to visit, always saying he was busy in Portland. I tried reaching out, calling, texting, but he only gave curt replies or ignored me. I remember losing my temper, saying over the phone, "You're not a kid, Nathan. Don't be so stubborn." He snapped back. "I'm not stubborn. Portland's 2 hours away. It costs money. Time," I shouted. "2 hours, Nathan. Is money more important than Dad?" He replied, "Yes, money matters. Don't call again." Since then we barely spoke. I couldn't forgive him for abandoning Dad. And now, sitting here, I knew he only cared about money. James, sensing the tension, spoke up. "Please, let's stay calm." He looked at me and Nathan, nodding slightly. "I'm sorry if this feels heavy." I nodded, trying to be polite, but Nathan just huffed. James continued, As I mentioned over the phone, I have your father's will. Mom, standing beside me, asked, when did this happen? James replied, a few weeks before he passed, he contacted me. I was surprised, looking at Mom. She nodded, as if she knew something. He wrote the will in the hospital? She asked. James nodded. Yes. I visited the hospital with his primary doctor. He was very clear about his intentions. James opened the envelope, pulling out a sheet of paper. This is the will, he said, placing it before us. I looked at Dad's handwriting, my heart pounding. Nathan, impatient, said, don't drag this out. Tell us what it says. James gave a faint smile, unfolding the paper. Besides the house and land, Mr. Robert's estate includes a savings account and a storage shed. I frowned. A storage shed? I knew about the house and land, but what was the shed? Nathan interrupted. The savings is cash, right? How much? James looked at him, answering, about $100,000. No inheritance tax on this amount. Nathan grinned triumphantly. I'll take the money, he declared, as if it was settled. I couldn't stand it. Hold on, I object, I said, my voice ringing in the room. Nathan turned, irritated. What? I'm the eldest. I shook my head. That doesn't matter. You can't take it all. He smirked, saying, then you take the shed. What's that anyway? I looked at James, hoping for an explanation. James flipped through the documents, saying, it's a storage shed near the leased farm. You'll inherit the building, the land, and everything inside. Nathan scoffed. A shed? Perfect, Ethan. I gritted my teeth, feeling injustice surge. That shed was probably just an old wooden shack, full of dust and farm tools. I looked at Mom, hoping she'd speak up, but she just looked at me, her expression unreadable. Nathan continued. So that's it, right? I get the money. Ethan gets the dirty shed. I wanted to protest, but Mom suddenly said, as long as Nathan doesn't complain later, I don't object. Nathan laughed loudly. Complain? Never. I stood up. Mom, why aren't you helping me? I'm not okay with this. Nathan mocked. Greedy, Ethan? You care about Dad more than money, don't you? His words silenced me. Yes, family matters more than money, but that didn't mean I'd accept this unfairness. I looked at Mom, waiting for her to say something, but she only smiled. I've helped you, Ethan. You'll see, if you look closely, the shed might hold surprises. I didn't know how to respond, only feeling anger and unease mix. James gathered his documents, saying, that's settled. I'll prepare the paperwork. Nathan stood, looking satisfied, while I sat there, staring out at Willow Creek's cornfield through the window, wondering what Dad really wanted by leaving me an old shed. After the argument over the will, I left Mom's living room, my heart still heavy with injustice. Nathan got $100,000, and I got an old shed. Mom's words echoed, if you look closely, the shed might hold surprises. I wasn't sure what she meant, but her mysterious look made me curious. The next day, I got the key from James Larson, and decided to check out the shed. I drove through Willow Creek's red dirt roads, morning sunlight glinting off the withered cornfield, where Dad used to work. The shed was near the leased farm, a 10-minute walk from Mom's house. I parked, stepped out, feeling a mix of excitement and doubt. Probably just a pile of rotten wood, I said. But deep down I hoped Mom was right. I walked down a path, weeds brushing my legs. The shed came into view, a rickety wooden structure, its tiled roof patchy, paint peeling off the walls. I sighed, thinking of Nathan's triumphant smirk. A dirty shed, he'd called it. I inserted the rusty key into the lock, the door creaking as it opened. Inside was pitch black, the smell of rotten wood, and damp earth hitting me. Sunlight slipped through cracks, illuminating dusty farm tools, hose, shovels, and an old coil of rope. I stepped in, the wooden floor creaking underfoot. Nothing special, I said, disappointment rising. Just an old shed, as I'd feared. I looked around, remembering days working with Dad on the farm. He'd stood here, straw hat on, teaching me how to hold a hoe. Ethan, working with your hands connects you to the land, he said, his voice warm. The memory moved me, but also deepened my sadness. If this was Dad's legacy, it was just memories, not something to match Nathan's $100,000. I turned to leave, but then I noticed something odd. The shed seemed smaller inside than outside. I frowned, stepping out to check. The outer wall was at least a few meters longer than the inner one. Something's off, I thought, my heart racing. I circled to the back of the shed, where thick bushes hid part of the wall. I pushed branches aside, and to my surprise, a small wooden door appeared, secured with a rusty padlock. A back door, I whispered, shocked. I went back inside, checking the rear wall, but it was solid wood. No sign of a door. What's going on? I muttered, excitement rising. If the door didn't lead into the shed, where did it go? I rummaged through the tools, hoping to find a key. After a few minutes, I grabbed an old shovel's handle, feeling something loose. I twisted hard, and 2 small keys fell out. Dad, I whispered, smiling. Dad always loved surprises, from birthday gifts hidden in boxes to farm riddles. I ran to the back door, trying the key. With a click, the padlock opened. I pushed the door, my heart pounding. Inside was a small room, about a meter wide, dark and smelling of old wood. In the center stood a large safe, its silver surface tarnished. I froze, recognizing it immediately as the safe from Dad's antique shop. I'd seen it in his office as a kid, where he kept precious items. This is Dad's, I murmured, touching the safe, feeling like I was holding memories of him. Tears welled up, but I held them back, knowing Dad always had bigger surprises. I called Sarah, my voice trembling. Sarah, you have to come here now. I found something in the shed. Sarah and my best friend Mike Sullivan arrived minutes later. Mike, a mechanic, brought a flashlight. What's this, Ethan? He asked, shining the light on the safe. Sarah held my hand, her eyes bright. This is your dad's surprise, isn't it? I nodded, inserting the second key into the safe's lock. With a rusty click, the door opened. I gasped. Inside was a collection of antique clocks, gleaming under the flashlight. There were at least a dozen, but the standout was Dad's pocket watch, the one he wore every day. Unbelievable, I said, holding the watch, feeling the warmth of memories. Dad always had a way of surprising me, I said, my voice choking. Sarah hugged me, and Mike patted my shoulder. This is treasure, Ethan. I looked at the pocket watch, remembering times Dad opened it, to check the time, smiling at me. This wasn't just an inheritance. It was Dad, his love for me. But I knew, with Dad, there was always more. There's got to be another surprise, I said, eyeing the safe. I decided to bring the safe to Mom's house to inspect it further. But first, I needed to tell her. Mom has to know, I said, locking the safe. Sarah nodded. Let's go, Ethan. I stepped out of the shed, sunlight hitting Willow Creek's cornfield, as if Dad was smiling. I knew this inheritance might be valuable, but I needed to learn more. I called Mike to help move the safe, and deep down, I felt a spark of hope. Dad chose me for this shed, and I'd find out why. I stood in the small room, behind the shed, in Willow Creek, sunlight filtering through the door crack, illuminating the collection of antique clocks in the safe. Dad's pocket watch, with its delicate silver chain, rested in my hand, evoking days he wore it in the cornfield. Dad always had a way of surprising me. I smiled. Sarah and Mike helped me move the safe to Mom's house, placing it in the living room, where moonlight once lit the floor, the night we heard the will. But the thrill of discovery quickly gave way to worry. If these clocks were highly valuable, would I owe inheritance tax? Need to check carefully, I told Sarah, my voice shaky. She nodded, holding my hand. You'll figure it out, Ethan. I contacted James Larson, the lawyer, for advice. James suggested I take the clocks to an antique shop in Portland for appraisal and recommended an accountant, Linda Carter, to handle taxes. Thanks, James, I said over the phone, relieved to have a plan. The next day, I drove 2 hours from Willow Creek to Portland, carrying a wooden box with the clock collection. The antique shop sat on an old street corner, its wooden sign reading Antique Treasures. The owner, an elderly man with silver hair named Henry, wore a magnifying glass, examining each clock under a desk lamp. These are rare pieces, he said, his voice low. This collection is worth at least $500,000. I was stunned, my heart racing. 500,000? I couldn't believe it. Henry nodded, pointing to Dad's pocket watch. This isn't the most expensive, but it's the one with soul. Your dad must have loved it. I smiled, recalling times Dad opened the watch, checked the time, and told me about auctions he'd attended. He loved clocks, I said, my voice choking. Henry continued. Robert Harper was a regular in the antique collecting world. These are a fortune. I left the shop, my mind reeling. $500,000? Dad's legacy was beyond what I'd imagined, but I worried about taxes and responsibilities. Back in Willow Creek, I met Linda Carter at a small cafe on a red dirt road. Linda, a middle-aged woman with a friendly smile, reviewed the documents in Henry's appraisal. This is a significant asset, Ethan, she said. adjusting her glasses. You'll owe inheritance tax based on this value. I frowned. What should I do? Linda advised. Keep the pieces you cherish. Sell the rest to cover taxes. You shouldn't keep everything if you don't understand their value. I nodded, knowing she was right. Dad's pocket watch was a priceless keepsake, but the others belonged with those who'd appreciate them. Thanks, Linda, I said, feeling clearer. I decided to keep the pocket watch and sell the rest through Henry's shop. The sale covered the inheritance tax, leaving me a small surplus. Thinking of relatives who helped when Dad was sick, like Aunt Ellen, who often brought soup to the hospital, I decided to send them $500 gift cards as thanks. They deserve it. I told Sarah as we packaged the cards in the living room. Sarah smiled. Your dad would be proud, Ethan. I nodded, but I still worried. If Nathan found out about the clocks, how would he react? I pushed the thought aside, focusing on finalizing the paperwork. A few days later, I sat with Mom in the living room, telling her about the clocks and taxes. She looked at the pocket watch on the table, her eyes soft. I told you, Ethan. The shed had surprises, she said, her voice warm. I laughed. You knew something, didn't you? She just smiled, not answering. I held the watch, feeling its weight, as if Dad was here. This is Dad's gift, I thought. But I think there's more. Mom nodded. Your dad always made things meaningful. After selling part of the antique clock collection, I paid the inheritance tax and sent $500 gift cards to relatives as a way to thank them for their support during Dad's illness. I thought everything was settled, but unease lingered, especially after learning a cousin had mentioned the gift cards to Nathan. He won't let this go, I said, staring out at the withered cornfield through the window. Sarah, sitting beside me, held my hand. Don't worry, Ethan. You did the right thing, she said, her voice gentle. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Nathan would cause trouble. Suddenly, a loud, rapid knock came at the door. I opened it, and there stood Nathan, wearing a rumpled suit jacket, his eyes sharp. Hey, Ethan, he said, his voice dry, but I saw him glance inside, as if searching for something. Nathan, what are you doing here? I asked, trying to stay calm. He stepped in without waiting for an invitation, and plopped onto the sofa. I had business at Mom's, just stopped by, he said, but his voice wavered, unconvincing. I frowned. Willow Creek is 2 hours from Portland, and Nathan never stops by without a reason. I remembered our last fight over the will, his smug look when he took the $100,000. What's going on? Spit it out, I said, my voice firm. Nathan fidgeted, then looked straight at me. So did you hit the lottery or something? He asked, his tone half joking, half suspicious. I was taken aback, shaking my head. No, what are you talking about? He pressed. Then did your wife get a big bonus? I tilted my head, confused. Sarah doesn't work for a company. You know that. She's a teacher. Nathan frowned, as if I was hiding something. So what's going on? He snapped, his voice rising. Don't play dumb, Ethan. I know you've got money. I was stunned. Money? What are you talking about? I asked, my heart racing. Nathan stood, pointing at me. Don't mess with me. I know the deal. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. What deal? Explain, Nathan. He started talking fast, his voice excited. A few days ago, I ran into Cousin Mary in Portland. She told me you sent $500 gift cards to thank people for helping when Dad was sick. $500, Ethan. Where'd you get that kind of money? I sighed, understanding the issue. Those were thank you gifts, I said, my voice steady. You know they helped Mom and Dad a lot. Nathan snapped. Thank you gifts. You think I'm stupid? You must have a big stash to do that. I shook my head, anger rising. What are you doing, Nathan? Jealous because I sent thank you gifts. He stepped closer, his voice sharp. Don't act innocent. You've got money, don't you? Where'd it come from? Tell me. I looked him in the eye, unyielding. From the inheritance, I replied, my voice firm. You know I got the shed. I found a safe inside, with antique clocks. I sold some to pay taxes, and used the rest to thank relatives. That's it. Nathan frowned, as if he didn't believe me. Clocks? In that filthy shed? He asked, his tone mocking. Yes, I said. Dad left it for me, not you. Nathan sat down, but his eyes still burned. How much were the clocks worth? He asked, his voice quieter, calculating. I sighed. They were valuable, but after taxes, there wasn't much left. I kept Dad's pocket watch because it means something to me. Nathan huffed. Means something. You're such a fool. If you've got money, why not share it with me? I clenched my teeth, incredulous. Share? You took $100,000, Nathan. What more do you want? He looked away, saying I spent it all. Bad investments, debts piling up. I was stunned. Debts? I asked, my voice low. Nathan nodded, his eyes red. I need money, Ethan. If you've got it, help me. I shook my head, anger mixed with pity. You did this to yourself, Nathan. I've got nothing to give you. He stood shouting. You're that selfish? Dad left an inheritance for both of us, not just you. I stepped forward, my voice firm. Dad left the shed to me, and I respect him. You chose the money, now don't ask for more. Nathan glared, his eyes full of resentment, then headed for the door. Fine, he said, his voice cold. Just wait. He left, leaving me standing there, my heart pounding. I told Sarah and Mom about it. Sarah hugged me, saying, You did the right thing, Ethan. Don't let Nathan make you feel guilty. Mom looked at me, her eyes worried. Be careful with your brother, she said. Nathan won't give up easily. I nodded, but unease surged. Nathan had spent $100,000 and was now desperate with debt. What would he do when he learned about the clocks? The confrontation with Nathan a few days ago still haunted me. He left in a rage, his eyes full of resentment, when he learned about the antique clock collection. Just wait, he said, and those words kept me from sleeping soundly. I muttered, what's he going to do? Sarah, lying beside me, held my hand. Don't think too much, Ethan. He's just desperate, she said, her voice gentle. But Mom's words echoed. Be careful with your brother. Nathan won't give up easily. I knew she was right. Nathan had blown through $100,000 and was drowning in debt. He wouldn't stop. Suddenly, the phone rang, shattering the night's silence. I startled, checking the screen. It was Mom. Ethan, there's a burglar in the house, she screamed, her voice panicked. I'm at the neighbors. I called the police. Come now. I jumped up, my heart pounding. Burglar? I thought, a chill running down my spine. Sarah woke, her eyes wise. What's wrong, Ethan? She asked. Mom says there's a burglar at her house, I replied, throwing on a jacket. I have to go now. Sarah nodded, grabbing the car keys. We drove through Willow Creek's red dirt roads, moonlight casting an eerie glow on the withered cornfield, as if warning of trouble. When we reached Mom's house, I saw police lights flashing in the yard. 2 officers stood by a patrol car, and Mom, in a thin coat, shivered next to the neighbors. Mom, are you okay? I asked, running to hug her. She nodded, but her eyes were red. I heard noises in the house. Thought it was a burglar, she said, her voice trembling. I hid at the Wilsons and called the police. I looked at the house, where police flashlights swept past the windows. Have they found anything? I asked. An officer, Tom, stepped out. We found a man inside, he said, his tone serious. He's trapped under a large safe. We've called for rescue. Safe, I muttered, my heart sinking. The safe with the antique clocks was in Mom's living room. I glanced at Sarah, seeing her pale. Who is it? I asked, though I suspected the answer. Tom looked at me, saying, he identified himself as Nathan Harper, your brother. I was floored, like I'd been punched. Nathan? I whispered, disbelieving. Mom gripped my hand, shaking her head. Why would he do this? Sarah hugged Mom, and I followed Tom into the house, needing to see for myself. In the living room, under flashlight beams, I saw Nathan on the floor, his leg pinned under the safe. He groaned, his face pale, sweat dripping. The safe had fallen when he tried to open it, its heavy steel frame crushing his leg. Nathan, I shouted, kneeling beside him. He looked at me, eyes red, voice weak. Ethan, I just wanted the clocks. I need money. I clenched my teeth, anger mixed with pity. Money? You broke into Mom's house for money? I snapped. Nathan groaned. I owe too much bad investments. They'll sue me. I shook my head, unable to believe he'd gone this far. Rescue arrived, lifting the safe and putting Nathan on a stretcher. As the ambulance took him away, Tom added, he confessed to sneaking in to take the clocks. He thought they were still in the safe. I sighed, looking at the empty safe on the floor. I'd sold most of the clocks, keeping only Dad's pocket watch. He risked it all for an empty safe, I thought, feelings mixed. Mom, beside me, wiped tears. I apologized to the police for the misunderstanding, she said, her voice sad. I didn't expect Nathan. Sarah held Mom's hand. It's not your fault. Later I got word from the hospital. Nathan had a broken leg and needed surgery. Worse, his business partner, learning of the break-in, cut ties. They don't want to work with someone reckless. the doctor said over the phone. He deserves it, I muttered. But deep down, I felt sad for my brother's desperation. I told Sarah and Mom. Sarah hugged me. You can't save him from himself, Ethan. Mom nodded, eyes red. Nathan needs to learn this lesson. After Nathan's break-in, things seemed to slow, but my mixed feelings lingered. Nathan had snuck into Mom's house, got trapped under the safe, and was now in the hospital with a broken leg. His business partner cut ties, leaving him in despair. He brought it on himself, I said, but deep down, I was sad for my brother's fall. Sarah held my hand, saying, You can't save him, Ethan. Mom, sitting across, wiped tears. Nathan needs to learn this lesson. I nodded, but my heart remained heavy. I contacted Linda Carter, the accountant, to finalize the inheritance tax for the antique clock collection. Linda, with her familiar smile, reviewed the paperwork and confirmed, Everything's done, Ethan. You kept the pocket watch, right? I nodded, touching the watch on the table. It's Dad's keepsake, I said, my voice choking. Linda smiled. You did the right thing. Pieces like that are worth more than money. I thanked her, leaving the small cafe on Willow Creek's red dirt road, feeling relieved. The clock sales covered the tax, leaving a small surplus. I decided to use it to fix Mom's roof, which leaked in winter. She deserves it, I thought, picturing nights she stayed up caring for Dad. A few days later, Nathan called from the hospital, his voice weak. Ethan. I'm sorry, he said, hesitating. I shouldn't have broken into Mom's house. I was just desperate. I stayed silent, gripping the phone. Part of me wanted to forgive, but the image of him trying to open the safe made me angry. You went too far, Nathan, I replied, my voice firm. You scared Mom, and now you've lost everything. He said, I know, I just want to make it right. I sighed. If you want to make it right, change. I'll help, but not with money. Nathan didn't respond, only saying, Thanks, Ethan. I hung up, feelings mixed. I forgave him in my heart, but I knew I had to keep distance to protect Mom and Sarah. I sat in the living room, looking at the pocket watch, reflecting on Dad's legacy. Dad left the shed to me, not Nathan, because he knew I'd value family over money. Dad was always right, I smiled. The watch wasn't just a keepsake. It was a lesson that love and memories are worth more than gold. I remembered days Dad wore his straw hat, standing in Willow Creek's cornfield, teaching me to live kindly. Nathan chose money and lost everything, while I, with just a shed, found the real treasure. I told Mom and Sarah the story. Mom looked at me, her eyes bright. You made your dad proud, Ethan. Sarah hugged me. You're someone Dad would be proud of. I nodded, feeling content. I decided to place the pocket watch on my desk as a reminder of Dad. Nathan, after leaving the hospital, faced debts and lost business partners, but he apologized, though I kept my distance. He needs time, I muttered, hoping one day my brother would understand the value Dad left. I fixed Mom's roof with the clock money, and every time I saw her smile in her dry home, I knew I'd done right. But life, as Dad used to say, always has surprises. One afternoon, Sarah pulled me to the backyard, where Willow Creek's cornfield stretched under golden sunlight. Ethan, I have something to tell you, she said, her eyes sparkling. I frowned, worried. What? Are you okay? Sarah laughed, holding my hand. I'm pregnant, Ethan. We're having a baby. I was stunned, then hugged her tightly, tears streaming. Really? A baby? I said, my voice choking. Sarah nodded, and I laughed loudly, joy overwhelming me. But soon, familiar regret surfaced. I wish Dad knew, I whispered, recalling my wedding promise. Sarah kissed my cheek. Your dad knows, Ethan. He's smiling from above. I shared the news with Mom. She hugged me, eyes red. You make me proud, Ethan, she said, her voice warm. Your dad would be so happy. I nodded, but regret lingered. If Dad were here, he'd wear his straw hat, stand in the cornfield, and beam at the news of his grandchild. I decided to move in with Mom in Willow Creek, so she could help Sarah with the baby. We'll be a family, I told Sarah, and she nodded, her eyes bright. Together, we'll make it. A few days later, while clearing my desk to place the pocket watch, I noticed a small slot on the back cover. What's this? I muttered, curious. I pried it open with my nail, and a folded paper fell out. My heart raced as I recognized Dad's slanted handwriting. I unfolded it, reading the words, Ethan, my son, I'm proud of you, always. Live for family, for love, as I taught you. Love, Dad. Tears streamed down my cheeks. "Dad," I whispered, clutching the note to my chest. The letter was like Dad's message from eternity, confirming I'd chosen right. I ran to Mom, showing her the note. She smiled, wiping tears. "Your dad always knew how to surprise you." I placed the note and pocket watch on the table, a reminder of Dad. Nathan chose wrong, but I hoped he'd learn, as I did. "I'll make you proud, Dad," I vowed, thinking of the baby to come. I'd teach my child what Dad taught me. Live kindly, love deeply, and never let money cloud your heart. I held Sarah's hand standing in the cornfield, Mom smiling beside us. "We'll be okay," Sarah said, her voice certain. I nodded, hope filling me. No matter what Nathan did, I'd protect my family, as Dad did. The story of Ethan Harper, set in Willow Creek, Oregon, reflects the values and challenges of modern American life, where financial pressures and family ties often clash. Through Ethan's journey from regret over an unkept promise to Dad, to discovering a $500,000 antique clock collection in a shed, to facing his brother Nathan's greed, the story emphasizes that family and love outlast money. Nathan's reckless act of breaking into Mom's house for the safe, only to get trapped and lose his business partner, warns of the consequences of prioritizing personal gain over ethics. Meanwhile, Ethan's choices, keeping the pocket watch as a keepsake, fixing Mom's roof, and moving in with her to prepare for his first child, show he values the simple lessons Dad taught in the cornfield. Dad's letter in the watch, urging Ethan to live for love, reinforces this lesson. In today's America, where consumerism and financial stress often dominate, the story encourages prioritizing family bonds over material wealth. Instead of chasing money like Nathan, spend time with loved ones, as Ethan did, caring for his sick dad. Cherish the small sheds, keepsakes, memories, or family moments, because they may hold value beyond money. When facing hardship, like Ethan with Nathan, forgive but set boundaries to protect what's precious. Modern American life, with its fast pace and financial pressures, reminds us that true happiness lies in love and connection, not bank accounts. Subscribe to the channel to follow emotional family lessons like Ethan's story in Willow Creek. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with more surprising secrets.